Good morning to all concerned citizens, media listeners. Uh, Thank you for coming back, and I have some uh, news and some video to share with you for today. Let's see the news first, or the comment. As you might already know, it is the second day after Abiy Ahmed and his supporters announced about their victory over TPLF and the Tigray people. They said they are in total control of the capital city Mekele and the surrounding areas. But the celebration we are witnessing in Amhara region and Addis Ababa are not happening in Mekele for some unknown reason. So far, the Ethiopian government's victory claim over the capital city Mekele never been independently verified by other media. Uh, According to various news outlets, TPLF fighters launched rockets into Asmara. They successfully sent 6 rockets to Asmara and also shot down an Ethiopian fighter jet today in Tigray, in which the pilot named Shambal Taddese Abraham survived and captured at the scene. The internet and the phone service are still off, so it is harder to verify the information and to create accountability for the massacres happened on the citizens of the same nation in this war. Concerned citizens media encourages Amharas and Prosperity Party supporters not to be excited too much about the conflict and the victory reports announced about the battles among the citizens of the same country. So, concerned citizens media says slow it down, please, and find better ways that can help us to live together in harmony. Stay away from provoking and offensive activities. So we see so many joys, uh, shouting, jumping, uh, so many kind of celebration about this war. We are not fighting another country. We are fighting each other. So I don't see that much excitement uh, about the fighting occurs between the same citizens in the same country. So slow down the Amharas. I see mostly the Amharas are doing this stuff. Maybe the time is good for them. So we all should advise them to slow down and find a better way to keep that country together or to live together. Abiy Ahmed of Ethiopia and the Prosperity Party supporters increased their attacks on Oromo intellectuals and legal scholars living in diaspora community. As you might already know, Abiy Ahmed and his backers issued the arrest warrant for Dr. Iskel Gabisa. This is the second time. Dr. Awol Alo, Dr. Itana Hapte, and Dr. Sagai Ararsa. This also was a second time for him. These intellectuals are targeted by Abiy Ahmed and his Prosperity Party group for advocating for justice, peace, freedom, equality, and democracy for all Ethiopians. They oppose unfair treatment of federalist groups in Ethiopia. They are being targeted for expressing their fears about the direction Abiy Ahmed and his Prosperity Party are taking Ethiopia. These well-educated individuals are also pinpointing what atrocities have been happening against Oromos on their own land. Whenever they get the opportunity to appear on social media, they talk about the killing of Oromo mothers, Oromo fathers, Oromo children, Oromo teenagers, and about the raping of Oromo women, mass arbitrary Oromo arrests, and about other extreme human rights violations carried out on Oromos by Ethiopian military, federal police, Oromia Special Force, and prosperity officials. This blacklisting and the targeting of the diaspora community is an extremely dangerous move by Abiy Ahmed and his supporters. I repeat, this blacklisting and the targeting of the diaspora community is an extremely dangerous move by Abiy Ahmed and his supporters. It is a devastating blow to the hopes of democracy and free expression in Ethiopia and around the globe. I repeat, it is a devastating blow to the hopes of democracy and free expression in Ethiopia and around the globe. It is a silencing strategy adopted by Abiy Ahmed and his supporters. It will not lead to a peaceful and stable country. The concerned citizens media warned you, listeners, that Abiy Ahmed is heading to be the worst dictator in Africa. He is coming closer to the Idi Amin of Uganda, the military officer who served as the president of Uganda from 1971 to 1979. He was popularly known as Butcher of Uganda. He started first by silencing any opposition to his commands. How the Idi Amin started? First, he started silencing the opposition to his commands by making all government office holders and others yes men. As he stays longer, he became more brutal against Ugandans. So this is what we are witnessing in Ethiopia slowly. So Abiy Ahmed, in consultation with the President Isaias Afwerki, is already started that road. If you do not be part of his Maddamer, you will be targeted by his brutal security forces. You must accept Maddamer. No, you will see. If you don't accept the Maddamer, you will be the enemy and you will be targeted by the security forces, by undercover. That's happening in Oromo already, forcing people to accept this new party. So all Ethiopians are threatened by his command posts, especially in Oromo, and nobody is challenging him how he spends the country's budget and what agreements he signed with Eritrean president and other issues. So nobody knows what agreement they signed between Eritrea and Ethiopia. Nobody. And nobody's challenging him. Citizens must have the freedom to challenge what their leaders are up to. Ethiopians must wake up before too late, before it reaches the brutal stage. It's already started, but if you don't unite and challenge him, it's heading to Idi Amin stage. They must start demanding, Ethiopians must start demanding free and fair election to be conducted in that country immediately. Leaders that cannot tolerate public expression and comments must not be allowed to stay in power. If they are not removed, there will be an obstacle for peace, stability, well-being of citizens, and a danger for the unity of the nation. So, up to Ethiopians. Ethiopians, as I see it now, divided in different parts, at least two parts, those who are supporting PP and Abiy Ahmed, and those who are opposing his policy. So he cannot be challenged in this way. TPLF was removed with a common force. We need to create common ground for this guy too. It doesn't look like he is on the right track. He is creating a yes man everywhere, whether you go federal police, the military, the parliament. I don't see any challenge. And creating, a yes man is a sign of a dictatorship. That's the beginning. And all the atrocities happening in Oromo and other Benishangul, now in forcing the Tigrayans to accept PP is a sign of dictatorship. He is heading to the Idi Amin, the butcher of Uganda. So that's a very serious warning for Ethiopians. You better unite together. Don't see only just this temporary victory. You need to look for a long time and what is best for the citizens, for all citizens to live together. Not try to take, advantage against each other. It's better to look for the unity of the country instead of fighting each other and calling names, taking advantage of the situation over each other. That's not a good way of living together or staying together peacefully. So that's a warning from concerned citizens, media. This is repeatedly happening. Okay. Yoya Media. Kadir Elemo, anchor of United Oromia, is planning to open Yoya Media, probably with the possibility of on satellite. So he is asking for donation from all Oromos for this media project. Please help him out so that he can be the voice of Oromos. So I guess the numbers, if you just call these people and donate, it's very, very essential project to increase the voice of Oromos. We are in a short in a media, especially back home. We have no Oromo media. The media we have is puppet of the government, propaganda part of the government. So we have no independent Oromia media in Ethiopia. All of them are talking, advocating for other ethnicities, mostly FM media, Ethiopian television, Fana, all of them, they are just propaganda for the other ethnicities and for the government. So we need to help this guy create Yoya media. To donate, you can use the following phone numbers: 612 888 7236, 651 335 0815. The third line, 320 237 8337. I repeat, the first line, the first four line, 612 888 7236. Second line, 651 335 0815. And the third line, 320 237 8337. These are phone lines, and operators are there to assist him to take your donation. So you can call one line. If it's busy, you can call the other line. And for calling for international calls, there is a +1 sign before these area codes. I don't know what this means. There is also a website created. It's a GoFundMe is also established to facilitate the donation process. If you want to use Cash App, you got $ Y Media, or if you want to transfer through your bank, you can use ZELLE 612 8598 311. So you can use GoFundMe, or you can check with his United Media under Kediro Oromo. These informations are available on that one. So I'm just sharing it to help him out. Okay. Black Lives Matter in France. Protests erupted in France after a video of police officer beating black man appeared on social media. I'm going to show you the video just for one issue: policeman beating or unfairly treating a black man, and it appeared on social media. Now there is a very, very huge public protest in France facing the security police officers, just for one person. But what happened in Ethiopia, in Oromo region, or some other regions? It's not about beating. People are tortured. People are killed and thrown their body to forest or to wild animals. What happened to our people? Why they don't have the freedom to protest this brutal attack against them? So we must fight for such freedom. So many people are killed. Still, they are under command post, unfairly treated. There's mass arrest, arbitrary mass arrest, and nobody's demonstrating because we are under the gun, under the command post. So we Ethiopians must fight for, such kind of freedom. If there is mistreatment, we have to challenge the government. And that's why I say we are already in the dictatorship system. And we must fight it and work on it to change it. So that's the comments and the news from Concerned Citizens Media. So I will share at least 3 different videos. One is about I'm going to show you the protest in France. Second one is BBC Hard Talk with interview with Ethiopian Attorney General Dr. Gideon Timotheos, and also Al Jazeera interview with Martin Plato on the situation in Ethiopia. So let's start with the protest first, then we'll go to the other videos. Let's see. Okay, let's see. There we go. This is a protest in France.
Some clashes between demonstrators and police, this protest in Paris was largely peaceful. Thousands of people gathered in the centre of the city to rally against part of a planned law that would crack down on people's freedom to film and publish images of police on duty. The French government says it would protect the identity of police officers. Those here say it's an erosion of rights.
It's important not to let this law pass because it would destroy our freedom to inform, especially when we're seeing lots of police violence. And even if those officers are a minority, it is too much.
This authoritarian trend is pushing us to say to the government, they must stop and change direction and let the police force know that there are these red lines.
The protest comes just days after the broadcast of this shocking video. A black music producer brutally beaten by police. And earlier in the week, an inquiry was opened after some officers were filmed beating migrants and journalists as police cleared a migrant camp. Without such videos, people here say some police officers could act with impunity. It's not only these protesters that are angry about the law. A number of MPs and senators have also expressed concern, and even the UN's Human Rights Council has called on France to protect freedoms, and all that is putting a lot of pressure on the French government. The crisis prompted French President Emmanuel Macron to post a message on social media. He condemned the recent images of police violence and urged his government to propose solutions to restore public confidence in the police force and protect rights. But those here say unless the government scraps the law's controversial clause, they will continue to protest. Natasha Butler, Al Jazeera, Paris.
Okay, that's the Al Jazeera report on the France protest. As you can see, just happened because of the police beating one individual, and that beating exposed on social media and caused all these mass protests and forced the president of France to tweet about this incident. That's we need something like this, freedom of demonstration, freedom of expression. When the red lines are crossed in Ethiopia, the red lines are crossed many times, in Oromo especially, many times. But I don't know, our people silenced by the guns. I know Eros tried multiple times under Abiy Ahmed, but they have shoot to kill policy at this time. It happened repeatedly. Young teenagers shoot and died, and just for protesting peacefully. So we have a challenge. We must work on it to change it. Citizens must have a freedom to express themselves if they see something wrong, if the government is doing something wrong, if they are treated unfairly. We must work on that one. If not, we will be shut down, we will be silenced by guns and by treating mass arrests and using the court system to delay the hearings, and there is no law and order. As you may know already, people released by the court, rearrested by undercover police officers. So that's a messed up system. Ethiopians should wake up collectively, not separately. One time Amhara, one time Oromo, one time Tigray. No, you cannot change this system like that. Okay, let's listen to the other video. Let's see. Okay, let's see. Come on. Okay, there we go. This is another video. Let's see. There we go. This is a video I shared from Oromo Diaspora Media talking about conflict in Tigray. What will be the possibilities in the future?
Let's now speak to Martin Plaut. He's a Horn of Africa analyst and also a senior research fellow at the Institute of Commonwealth Studies. He joins us now from London. Martin, I want to start in Mekele itself. I know information is scarce given the communications blackout we've been seeing, but what do we know about the situation actually inside the city and the potential civilian toll that this could have wreaked?
Well, if indeed the artillery began at about 10 o'clock this morning and by late afternoon they captured the city, this is the federal forces, then that is a considerable achievement, and it would suggest that the Tigrayans have pulled their heavy artillery and most of their people out of the city, because they're said to have had something like 200,000 men at their disposal. Now, if they really fought to hold the city, you wouldn't have been able to take it in just a few hours.
Sure. Martin, the TPLF is also vowing to continue the fighting. Is that realistic, do you think, in the face of what Abiy is calling victory, or will we potentially just see a shift in the nature of the conflict itself?
I think it's highly likely we will see the shift in the nature of the fighting back to a guerrilla war, as Malcolm was telling you a bit earlier. And there is some other news which has just come in. May I read it to you? It is from the U.S. Embassy in Eritrea website, and it says as follows. At about 10:13 p.m. on November the 28th, that's today, there were 6 explosions in Asmara. The embassy again advises all U.S. citizens in Eritrea to continue to exercise caution and remain in their homes. Now, that would suggest, this is after Mekele would have fallen. So this suggests that the Tigrayans still have rockets under their control, are still able to hit the Eritrean capital.
Well, Martin, as you say, this is already, perhaps unsurprisingly, given the history here, spilled over into Eritrea, and we've also seen these tens of thousands of refugees crossing over into Sudan. Can you give us a sense of what this might mean for the broader region going forward?
Well, this clearly is a regional war now. The Eritreans had a number of divisions on the northern border and were involved in the fighting. We have heard unsubstantiated reports that some of the refugee camps that the Eritreans were living in, that they were raided by Eritreans and that they took some of the young people onto the front line in Mekele and were using them to fight, which would be, of course, completely against humanitarian law. As the UN representative was saying to you earlier, he is now inside Sudan. The real question now is, will the Sudanese allow aid and assistance into Tigray, including perhaps things like fuel, which the Tigrayans will desperately need if they're going to mount a guerrilla war, as they did for nearly 2 decades until 1991? Is that going to happen? So already this is a regional conflict.
Well, just coming back to Tigray itself, I remember when Tigray held elections back in the region in September, the ones that Addis refuses to recognize, the TPLF itself won an overwhelming public mandate, something like more than 98% of seats. How do people who are living in Tigray feel about Abiy and the politics here, going beyond the conflict itself?
Well, of course, he is deeply unpopular in Tigray, and you don't exactly love someone who's waging a war against you. But in the rest of Ethiopia, of course, it is popular. He would be popular now if he had genuinely has managed to win this victory that he claims. But if it descends into a long-term guerrilla war, then people in the rest of the country are going to turn around and say, do we really want to send our sons and daughters to the northern border, into those deep mountains which the Tigrayans have held for so many years, and let them fight there and die? So what could be popular now might in the longer term become very unpopular.
Indeed, we're already seeing violence and unrest in other parts of the country too. Martin Plout there from the Institute of Commonwealth Studies. Great to get your insights here on Al Jazeera. Thanks for being with us, Martin.
Thank you.
Okay, that's the Al Jazeera report about the conflict between the central government in the Tigray region and the possibility of the continuation of armed conflict in the future, especially the guerrilla war. As he stated that, yes, TPLF are highly experienced. I don't know how they're going to do, but they may do it. They may go back and start challenging the central government through the trains and mountains. And so we have to wait and see what's going to happen if they are removed from the Mekele and from all the leadership of their region. They may reorganize and challenge those forces to regain the control of at least their region. I don't know. That's a possibility. They are discussing the possibility of the guerrilla war. And the final video I have is let me see. The final video I have is, let's see. Okay, this is a final video. A BBC Hard Talk is an interview or a discussion done between BBC anchor and Ethiopian Attorney General Dr. Gideon Timotheos. And this interview was conducted just a little bit before Mekele was taken. So I just let you know. And this, you will see how even the intellectuals and the doctors lie for their life. They lie for their money. This guy is a constitutional scholar, but he lied for Abiy Ahmed to take his salary, for the money. You will see it when you hear it. So that's the point of the government he want to express, but you will see when he was challenged by the journalist. Let's see.
Welcome to Hard Talk on the BBC World Service with me, my guest today, Gideon Timotheus, joined the new Ethiopian government led by Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed in 2018. There was much optimistic talk of a country embracing new freedoms and a new sense of unity. So much for those high hopes. Mr. Timotheus has since been promoted to Attorney General, but the political climate in Ethiopia has deteriorated dramatically. Right now, the country's federal armed forces are mounting what they call the final phase of their military assault on rebels in the northern Tigray region. Already, many hundreds have been killed in 3 weeks of fighting, and hundreds of thousands of civilians have been displaced. 40,000 are currently sheltering in Sudan. International observers have expressed concern about possible war crimes, a looming humanitarian disaster, and the danger of wider regional instability. All of this has happened just a year after Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize. Why have things gone so wrong so fast in Ethiopia? Well, Gideon Timotheus joins me now from Addis Ababa. Welcome to Hard Talk.
Thanks for having me.
Are we about to see a humanitarian catastrophe as a result of your Prime Minister's decision to launch a final offensive on the Tigrayan regional capital of Mekele?
We have to understand that this crisis is something that has been forced upon this administration and the Prime Minister. It was not by choice. Our forces in the Northern Command, based in the Tigray regional state, were attacked. It was a perfidious and treasonous attack. The objective of the TPLF top brass was to take over the armaments of the Northern Command and to overthrow this government. So the Prime Minister and this administration were left with no option but to respond with force. And this administration is taking every precaution possible to ensure that civilians will be protected and to ensure that the humanitarian challenge will be kept to the minimum.
Well, let me stop you there, because that isn't clear to me. I'm going to quote to you something said by a spokesman for the Ethiopian Armed Forces just 4 days ago. He said there would, quote, be no mercy for Mekele's residents when its soldiers encircle the city.
First of all, that quote was of a colonel in the army, in the field. He was not a spokesperson, as some have said, of the army or even the administration.
But with respect, it's even more alarming. If a senior officer is saying that, it's even more alarming. These are the men who are now marching on Mekele.
It is the commander-in-chief of the army and the army spokesperson who communicate and convey the administration's policy. And the colonel, even in that clip, was referring to the TPLF militia. He was calling on them to surrender. And as far as civilians are concerned, the administration and the colonel himself in that clip were calling upon civilians to disarm, to stay clear from obvious military targets like military installations.
Well, you're the Attorney General in your government. You must be concerned when, for example, Michelle Bachelet, the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights, expresses deep alarm at the reports of the heavy buildup of Ethiopian military equipment around Mekele. She says the aggressive rhetoric on both sides, it should be said, is dangerously provocative, and she said talk such as that about no mercy could actually constitute a war crime if it is then carried out. You're the Attorney General. What are you going to do about it?
I must point out that equating the government and the TPLF top brass is wrong, both morally and legally. The federal administration is the lawful authority to administer the country. It has every right to deploy forces in Tigray and enforce law and order, while on the other hand, the regional administration, the TPLF, does not have the right to raise an army and attack the Northern Command. The attack perpetrated against the Northern Command and the previous provocations of the TPLF left the government no option but to use force to impose law and order. I must also point out that the government has been at pains to avoid this kind of scenario For more than 2 years, we have been urging and pleading with the TPLF leadership to resolve differences in a peaceful manner. Elders from all phases, as well as traditional leaders, went all the way to Mekele to urge the TPLF to come to the table, but these overtures were rebuffed. They're ridiculed.
But Mr. Attorney General, it strikes me that you do have choices in your government, and you also have to look at the situation as it stands today. We know that many hundreds of people have died as a result of the 3 weeks or so of fighting. We know that hundreds of thousands of civilians have been displaced, including more than 40,000 who've been forced to flee into neighbouring countries. This is already a humanitarian crisis, so your choice is simple. Do you push ahead with the military offensive and cause a much greater catastrophe, or do you pause and look for some sort of negotiated solution? Are you prepared to countenance the latter?
If an attack was committed against an army base in any federal country, and if a regional state or a regional party tries to take over the heavy armament and the artillery and the weaponry of the army in any country, the response couldn't be different. You would not sit with a political party that votes to launch rockets at heavily populated cities and threatens civilian population, threatens the national government. The national army has been attacked, a red line has been crossed, and we have to enforce law and order. If we were to sit at the negotiating table with this kind of renegade elements, that will send the wrong signal, and every political party would get the idea that if they were to commit this kind of acts, they would get a seat at the table, they would get an international platform. We would be incentivizing violence and perpetuating a culture of impunity.
This is more than anything else right now. It is thus the most urgent of humanitarian issues. The UN says that shortages have become, quote, very critical in Tigray for the population of 6 million people. They talk about fuel running out, cash running out. People have no money to pay for food. And already 600,000 people who rely on monthly food rations have not received them for the last month. How many people are you prepared to see pushed toward starvation? And indeed, how many people are you prepared to see die before you rethink the military-first strategy?
The National Emergency Preparedness and Response Commission has finalized its needs assessment. A technical team was sent to the field to conduct an assessment, and based on that assessment, humanitarian access routes are being facilitated. 4 camps and sites are already being set up. So the relevant ministry and government agencies have already started their work to ensure that the appropriate humanitarian relief and aid will reach those who are in need. I must also point out that at this point in time, we have reached the final phase of the operation. Most of the Tigray regional state is under the control of the federal government, so we can provide humanitarian relief unhindered. The last phase of the operation relates to only one city, and most of the territory of the regional state of Tigray will be accessible for humanitarian purposes.
The UN Commissioner for Human Rights says reports continue to emerge of arbitrary arrests and detentions, killings, as well as discrimination and stigmatization of ethnic Tigrayans. Would you accept, Mr. Attorney General, there is an ethnic element to this conflict and the way it is being prosecuted on the ground?
You have to understand that the TPLF is an ethnic party. From its genesis, the way it's organized, it's an ethnic party. Its leaders, its membership, it's all from the same ethnic group. That's in the nature of the party. So most of its operatives, most of its supporters, and virtually all of its members are from the same ethnic party. So when that party engages in criminal activity, when it operates like a criminal enterprise, unfortunately, the law enforcement response might might have an ethnic element to it as well, but that is not from the design or intention of the federal government, but that is the very nature of the political organization itself.
Well, when you say that the government's response might have an ethnic element to it as well, I think many people around the world are going to be worried about that. Let me quote to you a recent tweet from Jake Sullivan, who is to be Joe Biden's national security advisor. He says, "I'm deeply concerned about the risk of violence against civilians in and around Mekele, including potential war crimes." And the EU foreign policy chief, Josep Borrell, has talked about his great concern of ethnic targeted violence. He says that he sees the possibility of huge violations of human rights and international humanitarian law. The international community fears war crimes on a massive scale.
We understand the concern of the international community. The administration has repeatedly issued statements and given instructions to ensure that civilians are protected, and also to ensure that there will not be arbitrary and discriminatory conduct on the part of law enforcement agencies. As I have pointed out earlier, the TPLF is an organization that is organized along ethnic lines, so it might give an appearance that measures taken against this group have certain slant, but that is not what the government is doing. I must also point out that the government is taking extreme caution and care to ensure that civilians will be protected and they will not come in harm's way. For example, although the army had reached Mekele a few days ago, the government gave a 3-day grace period to ensure that civilians will have some time to evacuate and will be able to minimize humanitarian disasters, to ensure that we'll be able to minimize damage to civilians.
The Tigrayans say that this is actually part of a much bigger story in which we see Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed backing away from his opening sort of few months in power when he talked about unifying the country, coming together, a new era of freedom. And according to the Tigrayans, what they have seen is a systematic oppression of their political rights, their right to autonomy and to self-government. They say that their elections in September were declared illegal by the central government. They say that the top officers in the federal army in the Northern Command were purged simply because they were Tigrayan. What they say is that there's a pattern here, that the Abiy Ahmed government is no longer prepared to countenance their autonomy.
You have to distinguish between Tigrayans and the TPLF. They are not one and the same. That is the problem in the way you are constructing the question. The TPLF is one organization. The government's problem is not even with the entirety of the TPLF. It's not with the rank and file member of the TPLF. It is with the oligarchic element within the TPLF who have chosen to resort to violence to advance their political objective. And as far as what the TPLF stand is in relation to the reforms are concerned, from day one, the TPLF has been trying to derail the reform of this administration. They have opposed the Prime Minister from day one. They have been carrying out various provocations. They have been inciting and instigating violence, ethnic clashes in various parts of the country. So this is our problem with the TPLF. The TPLF wants to regain the power it lost. The TPLF wants to regain the economic and political dominance it had, the undue privilege it had, and we are saying that can't happen.
But, Mr. Attorney General, I might find that argument more convincing were it not for the fact that the discontent of the Tigrayans, you say the TPLF, but many Tigrayans, is matched by discontent in other parts of your country. There are many different groups in your country who look at what Abiy Ahmed is doing today and say that he is no longer bringing the country together. He is governing in a way which which is repressing and oppressing different ethnic groupings inside Ethiopia.
Mr.
Listen, now
Samar,
he's gonna cover it
if
up.
you look at the reality on the ground, dissidents, political parties that have been in exile, the Ogaden National Liberation Front, the Oromo Liberation Front, all sorts of political parties have returned to Ethiopia. We have a more vibrant political landscape now than ever before. We are enjoying more pluralism.
See how
we
he's
are
lying,
increasing diversity, and
covering up
we're
the
seeing
crimes.
the reforms bear fruit.
But
But
if you told me, sorry to interrupt, but if you told me all of that 6 months after Abiy Ahmed came to power, that might have been persuasive. But look at the reality today. You have many people in the Oromia region who are disgusted with what they see as the repressive tactics of the federal government. We have a recent Amnesty International report which looks back at the last year in Oromia and finds that the security forces have carried out, quote, extrajudicial executions, arbitrary arrest and
You will
detention,
hear
torture,
denying
other forms of
all
ill
these
treatment,
reports,
forced
just
evictions.
like
I could
Lynch
go on.
Obati
You
on
are the
Al
Attorney
Jazeera
General.
last time.
You were appointed to stand
This is
up
a
for the
doctor.
rule of law, and you are letting so many of your fellow countrymen down.
We have conducted our own investigation about the Amnesty report that you are referring to. We have pointed out to the flaws and problems in that report. And this office, not only this office, but this administration has taken issues of human rights very seriously. We have been trying to bring to account
Killing people, torturing people,
gross human rights violations.
throwing the bodies everywhere. Now we're talking about taking human rights seriously.
Was not willing to honor warrants issued against the former spy chief, was responsible for this kind of gross human rights violation. They want to ensure impunity for these kind of individuals. So I think it is a bit difficult to accept these kind of accusations when they come from that corner.
But I am mindful that you are trained in constitutional law. You were put into this office to be a beacon of hope for Ethiopians, that things were going to be different. And now look at the conclusions of experts on Ethiopian politics like Kjetil Trondvold, who's in Norway but nonetheless is an expert on Ethiopia at his Peace and Conflict Studies Center. He says, it seems to me, hang on, let me finish. It seems to me, he says, the political transition that Abiy Ahmed promised has stalled. The government is relapsing into authoritarian practices.
Yes.
I beg to differ with his assessment of the situation. If you ask most Ethiopians, it's clear to us who's trying to derail the reforms, who's trying to turn the country into an ungovernable space. TPLF wants to return to power. Towards that, they are trying to bring about the disintegration of the country. Getachew Reda, one of the spokesperson of the TPLF, openly said that the relationship that the TPLF wants to have with the center is very much akin to the relationship between Somaliland and Mogadishu. And for that to happen, they have to turn Ethiopia into a situation very much like Somalia. They have to turn Ethiopia into a stateless society.
You know what, if I may say so, Mr. Attorney General, you know what your critics are saying about you? They say that you were appointed as an independent technocrat and you have become, in the course of your 2 years of association with this government, you have become nothing but a tool of a new bout of repression.
They can say whatever they want. I am in public service. I understand that I'm subject to criticism. But I know that we are on the right side of history. And when the final chapter is written, it will be clear that who was doing what, who stood for the cause of justice and rule of law. The TPLF wants to continue with its impunity. It wants to ensure that it will have undue influence. And towards that end, they are trying to destabilize the country, and we cannot let that happen.
you can pile the blame on the
TPLF.
TPLF for all of the different problems that Ethiopia faces today and the many different regions where many of your people seem so desperately unhappy with the government right now. But I am mindful that it is just a year since Abiy Ahmed was given the Nobel Peace Prize. How much has changed in just 1 year to the point where the International Crisis Group, a respected independent group of international analysts, are saying that the damaging conflict we now see in Ethiopia risks ripping the state asunder. Do you agree with that?
As I have pointed out earlier, if this kind of situation has happened in any country, if an army base was attacked in Scotland or Wales, the commander-in-chief, the head of government, would have to respond to that. Just because the prime minister has been awarded the Nobel Peace Prize, it doesn't mean that he stops being a commander-in-chief. He has a constitutional duty to protect the political and territorial integrity of the nation. He has to ensure that the troops are protected and they are not slaughtered like lamb.
But my question, Mr. Attorney General, is whether just 1 year after receiving the Nobel Peace Prize, Abiy Ahmed risks overseeing an Ethiopia which is sinking into civil war.
Yes.
If the Prime Minister was to let the TPLF go on with the kind of things that they have been doing, if he had let them acquire the heavy weaponry they wanted to acquire by attacking the Northern Command, yes, we would have descended into that kind of situation. But by taking the measure we are taking right now, we will be able to avert that possibility. The Prime Minister, being a man who wants to resolve things peacefully, has done everything possible, everything conceivable in the last 2.5 years to resolve differences with the TPLF in a peaceful manner. Until the TPLF attacked the Northern Command, just 2 days before the attack, the Prime Minister was in contact with the chairperson of the TPLF. Even prior to that, there were many formal and informal efforts to ensure that the TPLF will come to the table.
How real is the risk of civil war?
As you have noted earlier, we are in the final phase of this operation, which means that we expect that rather quickly we'll be able to finalize our campaign, and we'll be able to rebuild Tigray, we'll be able to resettle those who have been displaced, and to heal the wound that has been afflicted on the nation.
Gideon Timoteos, I thank you very much for joining me on Hard Talk from Addis Ababa.
Thank you very much.
Okay, that's Attorney General of Ethiopia, Dr. Gideon Timotheos, defending all the reports, human rights report and experts on Ethiopia. But yes, he is paid to defend the Abiy Ahmed administration. It's obvious, but it's okay to see their sides too. So, but I appreciate the journalists for those challenging questions, especially the situation in Oromo. And as I said, he is covering up for Abiy Ahmed, just like other PP officials. And supposed to, otherwise he will be fired by Abiy Ahmed. It's obvious. Abiy has the capacity, the authority to hire and fire anybody. Anybody is not defending PP or his positions. So I apologize. This video is a little bit delayed. It was a discussion before the situation in Mekele. So that's for information. Thank you again for listening, and I will be back with other news and videos next time. Thank you again for listening, Concerned Citizens Media. If you have comments, suggestions, you can send to me or you can comment under my video. So long, everyone.